Back in 2012, LinkedIn learned this really painful lesson about password storage, a lesson that is still haunting millions of us today. So, we're going to break down exactly what went wrong and, more importantly, how you can actually protect yourself from this kind of thing.
All right, so let's get into what happened. This whole thing didn't start with a big explosion. It was more like a slow burn, something that took years to really show its true colors. It wasn't just a single event, it was this long, drawn out disaster.
So, it all kicked off in June 2012. News starts breaking that about 6.5 million LinkedIn passwords have been stolen. And yeah, that was a pretty big deal at the time. But the real shocker, that didn't come until 4 years later, in May of 2016. That's when the other shoe dropped, and we found out the original breach was way, way bigger than anyone thought.
Yeah, that's the number right there. We're talking about 117 million accounts. And it wasn't just passwords, it was emails, member IDs, and this is the critical part, their hashed passwords. All of it was stolen way back in 2012, but we didn't get the full picture until 2016. I mean, that is just a massive, massive amount of data. Okay, before we go any further, we have to talk about what a password hash is, because it's at the absolute center of this story. The easiest way to think about it is like a digital fingerprint of your password. So when you create a password, let's say password123, the system doesn't actually store that. Instead, it runs it through this special one-way process that scrambles it into a unique string of characters. That's the hash. Now, the whole idea is that even if a bad guy steals that hash, they can't just reverse it to get your original password. Or can they?
So let's flip the script a bit. Let's look at this from the attacker's perspective. How did they take this big list of digital fingerprints and turn it into a master key that could unlock millions of accounts? Their attack was brutally simple and, honestly, super effective. It was basically a four-step playbook. First, they get in and steal the data, that huge list of 117 million hashes and emails. Next, they take a big chunk of that data and post it on a Russian forum for everyone to see. Then, and this is the absolute key, they start cracking those hashes offline on their own computers. And finally, once they have the real passwords, they launch what are called secondary attacks. This is where credential stuffing comes in. They just take those same stolen passwords and try them on all sorts of other websites, hoping, that you reuse them.
And right there, that's the real danger. As soon as that data file was stolen, the fight wasn't happening on LinkedIn's servers anymore. The attackers had the list. They could take it home, use their own powerful computers, and just hammer away at those hashes for days, weeks, even years, all without anyone noticing. Now, you might have heard this breach get called a zero-day hack. It sounds super sophisticated, right? But was it? Well, the truth is, it's a little more complicated than that.
The thing is, it was never actually confirmed how the attackers got in the first place. So the real story here, the lesson that we all need to take away, isn't about some fancy, unpatchable super exploit. Nope. It's about a catastrophic and honestly totally avoidable failure in how LinkedIn was protecting passwords.
Okay, so let's dig into the technical side of that failure. What exactly did LinkedIn do wrong that made this whole situation so devastating?
So the core problem really starts right here. Back in 2012, LinkedIn was using a hashing method called SHA-1. Now, SHA-1 is really fast, and you might think, hey, fast is good. But for passwords, fast is actually brittle. It's bad. It means attackers can guess billions of passwords every second. Modern standards, like something called bcrypt, are built to be deliberately slow and resilient. It takes way more computer power to check even a single password, which makes that whole offline cracking thing incredibly difficult. But honestly, the biggest mistake of all was that these hashes were unsalted. So what's a salt? It's just a unique, random piece of data that gets added to your password before it gets hashed. Without a salt, every single person who uses the password123 ends up with the exact same hash. By not using salts, LinkedIn basically handed attackers a huge advantage. They could crack one common password and instantly unlock thousands and thousands of accounts. It was a fatal flaw. And for the users, the fallout was immediate and it was severe. People started getting targeted phishing emails trying to trick them. Scammers were using their personal data. And worst of all, those newly cracked passwords were being used in those credential stuffing attacks we talked about. Where bots just try that same email and password combo on your bank account, your social media, your email, everything.
So that's the problem. It was a huge failure with very real consequences for millions of people. But here's the good news. We've learned a lot since 2012. So let's talk about what a modern defense plan looks like. Today, any company that takes security seriously should be following this playbook. First, they need to be using those slow, salted hashing algorithms. They absolutely have to offer multi-factor authentication, MFA. They should also be blocking you from using really common or previously breached passwords. And finally, they need to have an incident response plan ready to go so they can react instantly when, not if, things go wrong. Okay, so what can you do about it right now? This checklist covers the absolute essentials. Number 1, use a password manager. This is your foundation. It's how you create and store a unique, strong password for every single website you use. Number 2, enable multi-factor authentication everywhere you possibly can. Seriously, MFA is the single best defense against your password being stolen. Number 3, and this is the big one, the cardinal rule, never reuse passwords. A password manager makes this so easy, and it stops a breach at one site from blowing up your entire digital life. And finally, number 4, be proactive. You've got to check regularly to see if your accounts have shown up in a breach. And that brings me to this amazing, completely free tool. You need to go to haveibeenpwned.com. It was created by a security researcher named Troy Hunt. All you do is type in your email address, and it will tell you every single known data breach your account has ever been a part of. It's such an essential first step to taking back control of your security. And really, here's the most crucial point of all. We have to completely change our mindset. We have to assume a breach is going to happen. Assume that the database of password hashes will eventually leak. So the goal of modern security isn't just to prevent the leak, it's to design everything so that when that data is stolen, it's completely useless to the attacker. So that really brings us to the end here. The lesson from this whole LinkedIn mess is crystal clear, and it applies to every single one of us today. Your personal defense plan starts right now. Go check your email on Have I Been Pwned, make it a goal to set up a password manager this week, and seriously, before you do anything else, go turn on multi-factor authentication on your most important accounts. Think of this whole thing as the best and maybe scariest masterclass in password security you could ask for.